So, how do you make the perfect flan? Well, today we're gonna follow a recipe by Abby Marquez. She has millions of views, millions of likes on this Leche Flan. It's a Filipino version of flan. It looks pretty straightforward, but I mean, we're gonna dive in, we're gonna see how she does it, and then we're gonna try it ourselves. And we're gonna see if you should try this recipe or not. This is the show, Should You Try It? This is where I try viral recipes, so you don't have to. Let's jump into the recipe.
This is how to guarantee a silkiest, creamiest, most perfect leche flan. It melts in your mouth.
So first off, shout out Abby Marquez, Filipino creator. We love him. Her flan looks crazy. I mean, what an opener. Perfect texture. Let's keep watching.
First, get your mold. If you want to be traditional, use a llanera, 1 tablespoon of sugar.
So I don't have a llanera. I have cake tins, so we're gonna use those. Hopefully they work out. I don't know if they're gonna work out the same. They're a little bit thicker, I think.
Now over low heat, melt the sugar until it becomes amber in color. Let this cool.
Okay, so we're gonna melt some sugar over the stove. Definitely never done that before. Hopefully it's not disastrous.
Harden. Now gather 10 egg yolks, 12 if your eggs are small. And now we have a ton of egg yolks. We also have a ton of egg.
I think random thought, her egg yolks are really pale yellow.
Of egg whites. What do you think we should do with this? Comments are open. Rule number 1, don't over stir. With a very light hand, break your egg yolks. Unlike creme brulee, which uses white sugar, leche flan uses condensed milk. This will be a source of not only sweetness, but that cream.
I love condensed milk. Condensed milk is probably the best thing ever created. I have a massive sweet tooth, so anytime I have condensed milk, anytime I taste condensed milk, gets me excited. My mom used to make hot chocolate, but with condensed milk in the snow. So good.
Creamy sarap texture you'd look for in a flan. So get a brand that's thick yet affordable like Jolly Cow. 1 can of that. Again, stir painstakingly until it's one with the yolk. Then add
I don't know if I'm gonna have the patience to stir it slowly every single time. I'm not excited for that part.
Then add a 14-ounce can of evaporated milk. You know the drill. Whisk slowly. We're also gonna add some salt for personality and a squeeze of lemon. And a squeeze of lemon juice. This is optional. A splash of vanilla. You can see already how creamy that is. Rule number 2 is to strain.
Okay, so she makes the kind of custardy base kind of thing of her flan. It looks really easy. It's like 4 or 5 ingredients. I mean, you gotta stir it really slow with the whisk. It's all doable. Seems really straightforward. This looks like a pretty easy to follow recipe.
Rule number 2 is to strain the mixture 2 to 3 times with a fine sieve to really eliminate air bubbles that may have formed. With the last pass on the strainer directly and slowly into your llanera. This recipe yields 3 large llaneras, 6 if it's small. Give them a few taps to the counter before. Rule number 3, steam them in low heat. Bring the water to a boil and reduce it down until it's just simmering. Steam your leche flan for 60 minutes.
Okay.
To confirm if it's cooked, you can try to open.
I don't have a steamer that big, but I got a little baby steamer. Hopefully that's good enough. She got all the tools. She got the llanera. She got the steamer pot, the ginormous steamer pot like this big. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the tools, but we're gonna try anyways.
Leche flan for 60 minutes. To confirm if it's cooked, you can try to open one. If you insert a toothpick and it comes out clean, you're good to go. Let them cool down to room temp before putting in the fridge for at least 2 hours.
The camera's in the fridge! Get my camera! Get my camera! Get it!
To serve, simply remove the foil and invert onto a plate. Now you're ready to enjoy.
It's so perfect!
All right, she got a perfect flan. I can't even critique. It looks really good. Let's jump into the recipe.
All right, time for the voiceover. We're going to start off by cracking open a few eggs. We're going to separate the yolks from the whites. I always struggle with this as I always break open the yolks. But once we have 10 yolks, you're going to break them. That's super satisfying. And you're going to stir it painstakingly slow, as she says. And I just went as slow as I could. It looks really fast on camera. Time to crack open a condensed milk and pour that baby in. And I got a thick glump coming out of the can at first, but then it kind of came out more of that thin line. And you're going to add the whole entire can in. And I try to make this look as aesthetic as possible. And time to stir it slow. This time I stirred it a bit slower, probably because the condensed milk is so thick. And once it's combined, which takes ages, that's the low-key slowest part of this recipe, You're going to add your evaporated milk. I've never cooked with this before. I have no idea what it does to the flavor, but I added the entire can in. Added some salt, some lemon, and off camera, because I forgot to film this, I added the vanilla essence. And time to stir, and doing it slowly. I don't want to, add any air bubbles, and somehow I still had air bubbles in my mixture. But time to get those out. We're going to use the strainer. I'm going to pour it through. I probably used too fine of a strainer in the beginning, but it's coming out nice and thin. And I did have to clean it a few times. This first strain probably took around 5 minutes. And here's me trying to push the egg yolk through. And the second strain was way easier. It literally just went right through the strainer. Didn't have to clean it. And then I knocked it on the table to try to get the air bubbles out. But I'm going to put that in the refrigerator and try to let the bubbles come out. In the meantime, I got my cake tin. And I'm going to fill it with sugar. And I'm going to try and melt the sugar into a sugary syrup. And this is literally like my 4th or 5th try. My first try, I literally lit it on fire. I looked away for 30 seconds, and I looked back and it was on fire. But I managed to do it on the 4th try. It was a bit dark, but once it hardened up, I was ready to add my my kind of custardy mix in. Now, this was after leaving it in the refrigerator for maybe an hour or two. I did knock it once again to get the air bubbles out, because you do not want air bubbles. And as you can see, it's going right through the sieve. It's a little bit slower than the second one just because it's been cooled down, so the consistency is more thick. And once you're done with straining it that final time, you're going to cover it with foil like she does, and hopefully my flan, my leche flan, turns out well. I got my steamer apparatus here. I don't have that big pot like her, but I put my flan in there and I waited 1 hour. And after an hour, I opened her up and I thought it was still liquid. Looking at this, I was like, damn, did it even cook? But then I felt it with this toothpick and I was like, okay, low-key, perfectly cooked. And so I let that cool down for a bit, and then I kind of went around the edges with the knife, and the moment of truth. I was worried, and let's see how it turns out. Boom, the flan's right there. Now my flan's a tad flat, so I used this other one that I made earlier, and look at the consistency. It's so thick and juicy. I cut open the big one, like a slice of cake, to have a look at the cross. And I'm going to tell you, the consistency is perfect. Look at that. It's like cream cheese or like fudge. But here's the final thoughts on the review.
All right, so I've made my flans. This is a taller one. This is a flatter, bigger, wider one. I made 2 just in case. Somehow they both went pretty well. The biggest tips that I had from this recipe, I think number 1, it did work. It worked. All her tips were great. I don't know how they contributed to the end product, but it worked. I think the biggest one that I think was important was straining it. There was a lot of bubbles, just random like egg particles in the strainer by the time I strained it out 3 times. I think getting rid of that just made it way smoother. I've had flans that are not this smooth. And I think, I'm surprised by how good these turned out. I don't know how many eat 2 flans, but whatever. Outside of that, the flavor, perfect. I think the flavor is great. I think it's not eggy, not too sweet. The only thing I don't like, I think I overcooked the sugar, and the sugar is a bit on the burnt side, but the color looks great. Now, even though I got all of the bubbles out, like I hit it on the table, try to get all the bubbles to raise to the surface, I let it sit for a while, and I still have bubbles around the edges. Now the texture is great. On the inside, I think the texture is perfect, but on the outside, it's a bit, it's triggering my, what's that phobia of lots of holes, trypophobia. It's triggering that big time. I don't even want to look at it. Now the verdict, should you try this recipe? Yes, you should. This is perfect texture on the inside. Don't overcook the sugar like I did. Go lower heat, even though I went the lowest possible heat. go the lowest possible heat. I burnt my sugar multiple times. I really try to not overcook it, but I guess that's more of a, you learn as you do it more times. Recipe's great. I'm gonna leave the creator's bio in the description below. Make sure you follow her. Insanely good tips. Shout out my Filipino creators. If you wanna see more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe. I do videos like this every single week. I'll see you guys next week.